Hey, happy Sunday. It is 1:17 in the afternoon, and I probably sound a little raspy. Had a long few days. This week is actually the first half of the week was slow, but the second half was pretty busy. Had my class um over at the library, did a goodbye to Raphael from the Downtown Development Authority, although he'll be working with a nonprofit, and we'll be talking about nonprofits in a second. Um, had an event yesterday, which we'll be talking about that as well. Hold on a second. I don't know why it looks like something is in my nose, but it's not. It's just the shiny. Um, what else did I do? Yeah, it was a busy week. So this week is going to be a little slower. But I want to talk about something that's been heavy on my mind, and it was kind of an observation of what I saw. Uh, Actually, two events, because I did go to a fundraiser. That was the other thing. Went to a fundraiser earlier in the week as well. And yesterday was a fundraiser. So I talk about this a lot, and I want to talk about this again because it also impacts our nonprofit. I know right now things are slow. Money's tight for some, not all, but for some. But when you attend a fundraiser, so I'll use the example of what the type of fundraisers we host, the type of fundraiser that went on yesterday, um, even the type of fundraiser that went on in the week. And I mentioned this before. A lot of times you get invited to go to an event and you may buy a ticket. So I'm talking about the first fundraiser I went to. So you purchase your ticket. Your ticket allows you to eat and drink, whether it's appetizers, whether it's your dinner for the night, whether it's open bar. That ticket is exactly for that, the expenses of you to be able to eat and drink. That's what it's for. It does not really impact anything fiscally for the organization. It's strictly for the expense of you being there. So that is why they have other things. Like in this case, they didn't have this, but I've gone to many fundraisers where they have raffle items where you can, sign up for raffle. Then when you get in to sit down, they have entertainment, which is also paid for with your ticket money. So you get to see the speakers, the singers, the musicians, whoever they hire to entertain you. And then they do the pitch. If you write a check, and then they may do different things. They may do some more big ticket auction items. They may just say, hey, if you donate $100, you may get this. And then they'll go up on, if you do $5,000, you may get this. You know, quite frankly, it's cool if you receive stuff, if you write a ticket, but the tax deduction should be enough. But a lot of, charities will do things where you receive great things for your donation. So that's one example. Write a check. Make sure that organization, now I mean like write a check. The example of what we have done numerous times and what went on yesterday. So they had affordable raffle tickets and you would get these items, these, art pieces. But if you purchase art from the artists, they were giving 20% to the charity. So who is the charity? It's an organization. Um, Ironically, turns out it's an organization that was started by two twin brothers who went to school with my son. I didn't know that until later on. That are doing things to help the mangroves in our in our community. We live in Florida. The environment We're trying to protect it. So that's what they're doing. They're raising money through their merchandise, through all these different things to be able to help. So part of the agreement with them being there was that if artists sold work, they would give 20% of sale back to the charity. I didn't really see a whole lot of people buying art. I saw a lot of $5 raffle tickets, you know, but I didn't see a whole lot of purchasing of art. That happens, we kind of try to structure ours to, if you buy a piece of art, you get a raffle ticket. I like doing that better because it encourages the people to buy art. We've done that numerous times for different charities, and it tends to be a little bit more successful. Why? Because not only does the charity benefit, but the artist benefits too. You know, the artists take the time out of their day. They take money out of their pockets so you can eat and drink. That's there. They don't charge you to eat and drink while you're there. You can eat and drink at your leisure. They're taking money out of their own pockets to do that. So when you come into an event, and I'm the reason I'm thinking of this is because something happened yesterday that was a little irritating, and I'll say what that was in a minute. Um, People came in, and a lot of people came around. They didn't realize that the space was there. So it gives them the opportunity to come back. I love that because, you know, it's information for these people that realize that there are artists. There's an artist studio there. You can build a relationship with these artists, and I love that. The people who knew and saw the promotion and realized that, and it said 20% of art sales goes to the charity. That should be a red flag to let me go ahead and support, because not only am I supporting, not just supporting the charity, but I'm supporting the artist. What tends to happen is that somebody might mention that there's an event going on, so people will pop in and, eat and drink. So there were a few people there that were not invited by really anyone from the space. Don't even know if they were invited by people who were guests of the people in the space. But they were individuals who were roaming around, speaking to people, going back, getting another glass of wine each, going back and getting more food, didn't offer to buy anything, occupying the artist's time. And at the time, I thought, hey, they're friends of somebody. Turned out, we found out at the end of the night, they were friends of no one at that event. And it was winding down, and, we kind of mentioned it's time to go. The place is closing. We weren't pushing out the people that we were inviting, but one of the artists had to basically say, okay, it's time for you to go. I think that's so, even if you wandered in because you didn't know, contribute to what's going on. It's not for you to come there and have free dinner. That's not what that's for. That's to entertain the people that want to support the charity and support the artist. Have a little, these weren't children, these were grown adults. I think that we've come to a point where people just kind of feel entitled to everything. And that is so disrespectful. You know, some of the artists in the space, granted, are retired and they're probably in a decent financial, position. Some of them have regular jobs, so they're there part time. But there are many in there that this is how they earn their living. They earn their living by selling their art. They earn their living by teaching classes. Um, we have to get to a place where we respect the fact that these artists in your community are trying to better your community and try to live a sustainable life, period. That's why we started the nonprofit. So I want to swing into our nonprofit for a minute. We have only been in existence since 2018. We're a really young organization. Um, we haven't been eligible for public dollars, so we rely on donations and private dollars to be sustainable. No, we don't have a building yet. Part of the reason we don't have a building yet is because there's certain avenues you have to go through to be able to get a building, like capital, you know. Um, so in the meantime, it's literally run on volunteers because we don't have funding to have a staff. So you may know organizations, United Way, um, community partners, uh, different nonprofits that have staff. So they rely on a few different things to be able to maintain the staff that maintains the nonprofit. I pretty much am it, and then I have a board. And I asked the board to assist me in different areas. So I do. I have one of my board members, Craig McGinnis, is our VP. He hosts every week consistently in his space, his studio space, artist talks to help artists with professional development. Have another person, Nikki Henneveld, who is our secretary, who does a lot of stuff behind the scenes, and then myself. Anytime I go somewhere, I'm representing two brands. I'm representing my company and I'm representing the nonprofit. And it's a lot of work, and we don't get paid to do it. And it's a lot of work when you're representing two companies and you're not bringing any capital in until people, buy into it. It's cool to be like, oh, that's so nice. Yeah, it's nice, but we can't support the artists through this nonprofit if we're not getting funds in. So every month, we have expenses that go out every month. And if we do not have money in the account, that would be a problem. So just basic things to maintain a an organization that does not have a building yet, but there are still expenses that need to be taken care of. So anytime we ask, can you support this charity? Can you support our organization? There are reasons behind it. We're not just saying, hey, same thing goes for buying the art. It's nice, within reason when people are like, oh, that's so nice. I love your work. And then that's the end. So many of those artists, again, took time to make sure that you get to see the work. It would be easier for them to just be able to be in their own homes. Fiscally, it probably would save them money. Because think about it, they got to pay rent every month. Those studio spaces aren't free. They're affordable, but they're not free. See, and that's where people need to start understanding verbiage. Affordable doesn't mean free. You're still paying for something, you know. Then they're paying for their own rents or mortgage and expenses like, insurance and groceries and lights and water. We still have to eat. So you just saying, oh, that looks nice does not pay for their monthly expenses, you know? So please think about that the next time you attend a fundraiser or an artist studio or a gallery, um, showroom where artists for sale or they're hosting something to benefit a charity. Start thinking about that. Another thing, and then I'll get off of the soapbox. If you reach out to an artist or connect with an artist or talk to an artist and you're like, you know what, I really want to get XYZ, show them you're committed by putting down a deposit. Sounds crazy, but it makes you more accountable for your statement. So there was a piece of art that Craig had at an exhibition, and Anthony and I really wanted it. So we put down a deposit on it. We put the deposit down the next, because we didn't know when the show was coming down. So when the show came down, we paid the balance. That's pretty much, and this particular show was not an exhibition that benefits the space. It benefits the artist directly. I love those shows, quite frankly, I do. It makes it easier because the artist gets 100% of the sale. Um, but yeah, if you say to someone, "Oh, I really like this. Oh, I really want to commission this. Oh, I love that piece of art." If you're not in the market to pay it outright, put down the deposit and pay in installments, and reasonable installments. What do I mean by reasonable installments? I'll give you a pretty easy example. If someone has a piece of art and it's $100 and you say I have to pay in installments, don't do like $5 a month payments until it's paid off. Pay within a reasonable percentage. So, like we had one person who was like, "Oh, I can, it's no problem." They got the work from someone that was holding it, and literally they paid like $250 for a year and a half. So you do the math. Don't do that. Because paying in installments means like I'm going to pay in thirds, um, depending on what it is. I'm going to pay in thirds, I'm going to pay half now and the other half later, something that's realistic. Not like you have something that's 4 grand and you're paying like $100 a month. That's kind of ridiculous. You know what I mean? That's not necessarily the amount. I can't remember what the amount was, but they paid for over a year and a half, literally. Um, Everybody has their situation. My recommendation in a situation like that is put away money until you have the amount, or at least put away money until you have half to be able to pay out half. Then you're like, I'm gonna pay the rest in installments. Something that's a little bit more like, oh, this is worth it. Because the sad part is you're making it difficult because the other thing is they're holding on to this work until you're paying it off. And somebody might come along and want to buy it. And they're like, nope, I already have a commitment with this individual. And you're like doing these little installments. Be realistic. I know if there's a piece that Craig had that's like 4 grand, I'm gonna save towards that. I'm not gonna make him wait like 100 years for me to pay $4,000 to him. Just not. I won't even mention. I'll be like, usually Craig has everything labeled, so I don't even have to ask. Um, so I'll know that that's whatever. So now I've raised my $4,000. I'm like, hey, Craig, do you still have whatever it is that it's like, yes, I want to buy it. Here you go. I just would rather do it that way. I think it makes it easier for the people. And the other thing is, you're not putting false hope into an individual's head because things happen. I mean, we had a couple of things happen that we were not expecting. Our AC went through the hell. Then our heater went through hell. So I would rather not say anything to anyone till I know I have the money in hand to be able to pay them for the piece. Don't put false hope, especially when you know you can afford it and you're kind of putting all this energy into this artist's head. So now they're excited. They have a collector that really wants their work. So then when they reach out to you, like, oh, I decided not to do it. You're not understanding that that's a broken-hearted artist. You're probably like, well, they need to get over it. No, you didn't have to say anything. You could have just been like, love that piece. period. And that's the end of it. And they were like, oh, thank you. And that's it. Not like, oh, I love that piece. I gotta get it. And I see it online all the time. I see people posting stuff to be seen. I absolutely love that piece. That piece is mine. So now you're putting it out there for other people not to even look at the piece because you claimed it. So, and people do read other people's comments. So now you're like, oh, that's mine. I'm gonna get it. Let's DM and talk about it. Y'all DM, and whatever reason you opt not to do it. But now the public saw that you had an interest and you were going to buy it. You know what I mean? So I don't want to use the inappropriate, but it's kind of like, you like this girl and you let it be known to everybody else that that's your girl. So then people are going to back off, right? So meanwhile, you're like, she's whack. I'm not interested anymore. But everybody's like, yo, but you just blocked an opportunity for me to be able to connect with this person because you made it clear that that's your girl. Same thing goes with art. Same thing goes with art, especially, because it's one of those things like it could be in your head, I want to get this, and somebody else jumps in before you do. And they're like out of sight, out of mind. The other person's over it. So you blew an opportunity for an artist. And you may not care, but again, that's how these artists eat. So start thinking about other ways of not being seen, but being respectful and supportive of these artists and these charities. You know what I mean? Trying to think of an example with a charity. I mean, the interesting thing about with charities is a little bit different because what ends up happening is that if someone says, I'm going to write, publicly says, I'm going to write a check to, I'll say our charity. I'm going to write a $20,000 check to the No More Starving Artists Foundation. The interesting part with that is that generates people who want to do the same thing. So you may end up doing something where somebody says, I want to do $20,000 and someone says, I want to match that. That works for philanthropy. That's how organizations grow and become successful. It's a little bit different with art. You make a public announcement, this piece of work is worth $20,000. I want that. And you go online and you say it. And then now people are like, well, I'm going to move on to the next thing. So they take their 20 grand and they, throw it into another artist's lap or into another position. Maybe they say, you know what, I didn't get that piece of art. Why don't we take a trip? So now that money's gone. They took their $20,000 and they put it into something. And then you decide, yeah, I know I said I wanted that piece. I don't want it no more. So now they lost an opportunity from you, and now they lost an opportunity from this one who had their eye on it, had planned on getting it, but now they're like, you know what, I'm taking my money and putting it elsewhere. So when the artist turns around and makes an offer to that other person, they're like, I thought you sold it. We went a different route, but thanks. So the artist is left with the piece of art and nobody to purchase it. So start thinking about those kind of things. This is just something that went through my head. It kind of bugged me a little bit that people were not, everybody loved everything that was there, but nobody was willing to pull the trigger like they could have. And again, would have benefited not just one person, but two entities, the artist entity and the charity entity. So please start thinking about that the next time, you're at these events, these smaller fundraising events. The other thing is, if you can't go, if you are one of those people for whatever reason, you get like invitation after invitation and you're just like, I can't go. make a commitment to the person who invited you that you're gonna try your best to come by and support them. And because it's a charity, write a check, even if it's a small check. Because what would you, let's say at the minimum you would have spent is $100 at the space. Maybe you would have bought a print or something. So say, you know what, Trina, thank you so much for inviting me. I can't make it. I'm going out of town. I'm gonna make sure I hit up Anthony and go to his studio. But in the meantime, what is the name of that charity? I'm gonna write a check and I'm gonna send it to you to bring to them. That is way more of something that I would appreciate and respect, because I've invited a lot of you guys to not just, I'm not just talking about our charity, but like they host a lot of events at Zero Empty Spaces for different charities. And I get, some people like, oh my God, I forgot. Oh, but like I said, if you are real about what you say to me specifically, because guess what? Many different things I've committed. Gone to the restaurants, I've gone to the coffee shops, I've utilized people's businesses in different ways. I made sure that I stepped up. So the same way I've committed to your businesses and your philanthropy and projects and stuff, it would be cool to have that reciprocated, but not just for me, for whomever. So in this case, the Mangrove Organization, all the people that we sent invitations to that could not make it, it would have been wonderful if you wrote $100 check. Just say, you know what, I can't make it. Anthony, I will be at Anthony's studio within the summertime. It's slower in the summer, so I can pop in there and it's not so crazy because they do still want a piece of his art. But in the meantime, I want to write a check to that charity. That would be so wonderful and respectful. Um, just something to think about, folks. Uh, Anthony has thrown a lot of fundraisers, a lot of shows, because so many people have acknowledged his work and have said, I really want to revisit a new piece of work. I want to commissioning a piece of work. So and other artists that do this too, do these little private things for y'all. They do it for y'all because out of respect and appreciation. But don't say, yeah, I'm going to be there, and then you don't show. Because this is something else that a friend of mine actually, because we have been talking about RSVPing and how important that is. People don't realize now. I don't know what that is. I know when I was growing up, if my mother RSVP'd for an event for me, so we're going way back to about like 7, 8, 9 years old. If for whatever reason I couldn't go, the only reason I couldn't go is that I was sick. That was the only reason that I would not be able to go to something she RSVP'd for. But she always RSVP'd. She always said yes or no. These maybes that Facebook put in place is either yes or no. And if it's yes, then show up. The maybes, what is happening now is that people think if they put maybe, that's boosting your algorithms. I would rather you just not answer, because it doesn't do anything but give false hope to the host. And the reason I say the host, I'm not usually the only host. Whenever I do events for Anthony, it's usually for his studio, which means it's not just for him, it's for the other people in the studio. So the host, the multiple people that are contributing their dollars to entertain you and supply quality stuff so you can enjoy your experience. So when you say maybe, you might as well just say no. Say no. And if you show up, then you show up, because it's not like a formal situation. Now, you couldn't do that for a wedding or some kind of formal situation where there's an actual head count. But understand, in the case of this, we are accounting for the fact that if they say 50 people, that they're going to have food, wine, drink, whatever for 50 people, not for 4 people. So that's the other thing. Don't put yes that you're going and then you forget. So another example, even though this is free, the library, I teach workshops at the library. So I had full capacity listed. I saw my sheet. Um, Supposed to have been 14 out of 15. It's supposed to be 15 people, 14 RSVP. Now, again, this is free, and I notice when people don't pay for stuff, that's when they get comfortable and they show or don't show. I didn't get my full amount of people. And ironically enough, one of the people that RSVP'd for themselves and brought somebody. So that's what made my class a little bit more than what it actually turned out to be. I chalked it up to people are used to me teaching late classes, not afternoon classes. So these people might have assumed, not reading the time, that I was going to be there in the evening. Couple of people I recognized, I reached out to them. One had an emergency, couldn't make it. But for the most part, again, you RSVP for something and you did not attend. And since it's limited seating, that messes it up for other people who want to attend. So one of my students that was in the class, she was very, very annoyed by that. She said, that is so disrespectful because this is a free opportunity. There are probably other people who would have wanted to take in this class and they went to RSVP and it was full. So they didn't RSVP. So then these people didn't show up, so they took those opportunity from those people. So you got to think about it like that. Just because something is free, be respectful enough to put it on a calendar. Like I used to handwrite everything in a hand calendar. And then it just became where I would misplace the book. So now what I do is I put it on my phone calendar and it reminds me when something's coming up and I check it. I consistently check my calendar. So I'm not put in a situation where I'm putting someone else in a situation. I'm respecting the fact that whatever it is, whether it's something like when I attended Raphael's event, um, what ended it, and it kind of evened itself out. It was a lot of people there. Anthony double booked. So another person who did not RSVP because they wasn't sure if they were gonna go ended up. I sent them a message, "You gonna be there?" And they was like, "Oh, I'm not sure." And then they ended up at the last minute saying, "You know what? I think I will come." So they ended up being my plus one. So it kind of evened itself out. But I made those arrangements happen. When you are RSVPing in a case like this where there was food and drink there and you just don't show, regardless if they're like, "Oh, well, there was a lot of people," doesn't matter. They accounted for you to be there. And that would have been rude of me not to have made arrangements around the other person that was supposed to be with me. You know what I mean? So respect the RSVP situation for things. If you're not gonna go, don't RSVP you're going. If you say you're going, then show up. So to recap, that's one. The other thing is remember these charities are trying to raise money so they can do things for the community to help people, in our case, helping artists, awarding scholarships, awarding grants. I've already, since our website has gone up, we received a few dollars, but we received a lot of requests for grants and we don't have the money for them right now. And I hate to turn people away. I've had to turn away 3 or 4 people already. And I don't like that. Um, the other thing is, again, keeping things working. If you were a recipient of, and I said this last week, if you were a recipient of something, an award, a grant, um, scholarship, we didn't give it a lot of scholarships yet. Most of them are adults just getting into the workforce. So, but if you were a recipient, especially of awards, because we've given awards as low as $250, as high as $1,000. We've given out $1,000 in grants. So if you were blessed enough to receive something from our organization over the years, even from our company before we were a nonprofit, um, pay it forward. Do something to make sure another artist gets an opportunity. You know, anytime I have a little extra capital, I drop it in the caddy. I have to keep in mind it's like I do a lot of moving around of money in there because we have certain expenses that every month it doesn't matter. It's got to get paid for. So keep that in mind. So if you are somebody that's like, you know what, I do have money, I would like to make sure that artists are being taken care of in whatever way possible. I wanted, even if you do them like in pieces, I want to write a check for the overall of the organization to keep it flowing. I want to write another check for scholarships for these young people, and I want to write a grant. I want to underwrite a few things for your organization. We would truly appreciate that. Because I see people all the time, like I was there at the community partners, and they got like $1 million for something. I'm not asking for $1 million. It would be wonderful. It would totally transition our organization, but I'm not asking for $1 million. I'm asking for a few dollars so we can make some artists happy and to be able to do some things that they weren't able to do before for their art business. We want to be able to award scholarships to these young people. We want to be able to do like fun stuff, like art battles where we can give awards. We want to contribute to other groups who have events and have, where we can underwrite an artist at an event when an event can't afford to utilize their funds to live paint at a show. Those kind of things. I mean, if people don't think about that, there are many organizations that have their budget set, but they're like, you know what would really make things pop is if we have this live artist, but they don't have anyone to underwrite it. We would love to underwrite it and have our name on the bill so other people know to come to us and other people know to donate to us. That's the things that we want to be able to do. So if you're watching this now and you're like, there she is on her soapbox again, listen to the small things that I said. Underwriters, people who who like, you know what, I got this money that I don't know what I'm going to do with it. Let me go ahead and help them out so they can do some things that they've been doing. I got to tell you, some of the best, weirdly enough, during the pandemic, so many artists came through and did stuff like helped us sew masks for another organization. Um, we were able to get them. So part of it was getting artists branded. So part of our funding went to making sure that they had, especially if they were fiber artists, if they were to get their labels done, they had the labels ordered. We ordered enough for them to put into the mask and the rest for them. We paid for all that. They paid for nothing. Um, we were able to connect them with different charities during the pandemic. We were able to give money to them. There were grants. We didn't have a lot of money for grants because it was people were, trying to pass money here and there. But we were able to award, I think it was like about 8 or 9 different people between musicians and visual artists grants. So I think it was like 250 for the performers virtually, and $1,000 for if the artist could put together the proposal, they got a grant. And the only thing that the stipulation was they had to pay it forward physically. So do something for another charity for the most part, utilizing their talents. So those are the things that we want to continue doing. We were able to help somebody repair a piece of art that got damaged at Continuum years, a few years ago. We were able to do that. We were able to help somebody contribute to a funeral from one of our local spoken word artists that passed away. We were able to help another artist and to contribute to their GoFundMe because they were in a major accident. We were able to help somebody else with their studio. They got hurt or they fell ill and was not able to pay for their studio. So the board agreed that we'll pay for 2 months of studio um, rent. So those are the kind of things we do on top of like so many artists that received awards over over the last 10 years, even um, pre the organization. So there was a lot of benefits and things that have gone into artists in this community, and we want to continue doing it. And the only way we can do it is by your support. Period. So that's it. Anthony's at his studio today. He's at Zero Empty Spaces. They are there until 5 p.m. If you want to check them out, go to 11,300 Legacy Avenue, Suite 140, Palm Beach Gardens, Florida, 33410. There's a way to get in. I advise you to park in the parking lot behind the building. It is a wooden building, or it's a big building and it has wooden doors. Upstairs is a salon. They're on the lower level. So, yeah, go and support them. Go support the Peach. There are artists in those studios as well. Um, yeah, just find a way to continue supporting these local artists. So that's it. Hopefully, you guys have a great day, and I will talk to you soon. Deuces.